We just got the notification.
All right. Well, hello, hi, and welcome to the Terminal Podcast, where in the end it is all about the numbers. I'd like to thank everybody for showing up here for the first of what will hopefully be at least a couple more podcasts going forward. But I do have the number that we can use in focus, but I'm not going to be the number that will be in focus, but it could be the 129 from the tracks from the Smithsonian Anthology Collection of Hip Hop. But we're not going to be talking about that one today because I don't have the number associated for that one. But I do have four passengers that I can introduce. I am always going to start with who will be on the far right now, my friend from the far north. His name is Mark. Say hello. Where are you flying in from today, and what are you drinking?
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm flying in from Boston, and normally, if I was sitting at the bar waiting for my flight, I'd probably be sipping on some sort of snobby IPA of some sorts, whatever they have on tap.
I have on tap. I'm going to go down on my screen, especially since Rashawn has disappeared for a moment. So, Alex, where are you flying in from, and what are you drinking tonight?
Well, I'm also flying in from the Boston area, and boringly, I'm just drinking water with ice in it, though. So that's my fancy part.
Okay. Is the ice got anything? Is it, or is it just H2O?
It's just water, but I guess I could have wine too. Here we go. I got a bottle of wine too, so we'll be all right. We'll have something better to drink.
All right. My third guest is speaking. Is that Dizzy in the background on the trumpet, or
Oh, that's Miles.
okay? So where are you flying in from today with Miles, Mr. Anthony?
Miles and I will be flying in from Blue Note Records. No, I'm south of Boston, from the Boston area, and today I am drinking Coke Zero, and you'll be seeing a lot of it.
See, and last but certainly not least, flying in, Mr. Rashawn. Where are you flying in from this evening? Now that you've come back to us after a temporary break away from, but you have returned. So where are you going to be flying in from?
Yeah, I
And
had
what
to
are you
go to the
drinking?
Delta. I had to go to the Delta Lounge real quick. Flying in from Miami. Uh, California Cranberry, my go-to. So
Okay. All right. Well, uh, sorry. I had a commercial because today's Terminal Podcast is brought to you by the Good Chair. When Grad Dad needs somewhere to sit, give him a good chair and car tape. The best tape to fit your car, whether it's a crack in the window or holding up your bumper, use car tape. Now that we've got sponsors filled out, it's time to get to the first flight, which will be the first question of the evening. It revolves around the What If series. So, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen What If is takeoff of the Marvel comic book from the MCU universe. So, all of this is based off of episode 3 of What If. Once again, spoiler alert for episode 3 of What If. It is about to be spoiled if you haven't seen it. Essentially, the Avengers don't happen. is the spoiler alert for that episode. But it does end up, if you, and that will be the question that's being posed, that I'll start with Rashawn since I'm going to go around circling this way. If you're Nick Fury, and you just had Ant-Man pretty much take out everybody in what was going to be your Avengers, you've got two captains. Got Captain America, Captain Marvel. Where's your Avengers team go to? How are you going to stop President Loki? Who do you got? What's your Avengers team?
all right. So having cosplayed several times as Nick Fury, I just need the eye patch. Um, so I was thinking about this, and of course, I'm gonna start with, of course, with the captains. I'm bringing in Thor and Lady Sif because they know him. If I can. Wait,
Well,
was Thor
Thor's
killed?
dead. No,
Thor's
Thor's
dead.
dead.
So Lady Sif. Lady Sif. I can't remember she, because she knows him. I'm bringing in Wanda and Doctor Strange.
I don't think you can get Doctor Strange because that hasn't happened yet at that time.
He hasn't become Doctor Strange yet, huh?
He hasn't. Stephen Strange
You didn't.
hasn't become Doctor Strange. Yeah, he hasn't become Sorcerer
He hasn't
Supreme.
become Sorcerer Supreme yet. Okay, you're messing with my timeline, Martin.
I'm the timeline is where it's at. We're at Fury's big week, which is Anthony, do you have any information about Fury's big week? Are you familiar with Fury's big
Yeah,
week
I'm
at all,
familiar
or?
with that. That all that took place over 7 days. I got you.
7 days, right? Right.
So,
Well, that throws out most of my
Anthony,
team then.
I'm transitioning. I'm transitioning. So, Anthony, your same question, which is you've already kind of got to start. So you got to understand with this answer where you are within this timeline. So, who did if you don't mind me asking, who did that take out for you? Like, well, I can't use this person now because of that, even though I thought about it at first.
So Spider-Man's out.
Somebody else.
Spidey is out. Doctor Strange is out. I'm trying to think of Wanda is out. So is Pietro. Anybody that happened after that first event?
I remember I was going to say, because I've had this conversation before. Wanda and Pietro are the result of Tony Stark being an arms dealer and his weapons destroying that village. That
that could have happened. Yeah, you're right.
Still happened. He's still, that hasn't changed, but it's not, there's no Stark, no Stark at the end of it. It's still
right.
Obadiah now is probably the one that she'd probably want to, go after and kill.
Yeah.
But that's a stretch. But either way, that's a stretch just to try and get Wanda.
Yeah, I the Guardians of the Galaxy are around. They're still kicking around. I don't know. I'm trying to think of anybody else that had an origin in the MCU after the Avengers movie, and I can't think of. I'm drawing a blank. But I need T'Challa. I got to get whoever I can get out of Wakanda is coming over on my team.
Yeah. See, I had Shuri. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but I had Shuri down, but she's like 12 at that point.
She's still smart. She's still smart.
Yeah, she's still smart, but she's not.
But she's a 12.
Yeah, I also had Nebula.
The same way, if you wanted to get Spider-Man, it's like you could possibly get a pubescent, I'll give you a pubescent 12-year-old version of Spider-Man, but not Spider-Man not Tom Holland Spider-Man who's going to go homecoming and join the MCU later. So Mark, as I transition over, as you are now Nick Fury, and now you can have a 12-year-old Spider-Man or a 12-year-old or a 12-year-old who's the other child that we're talking about here?
Shuri.
Yeah, it's right, Zuri. Yeah. From Wakanda. But who's on your team? Who you getting to avenge to stop President Loki?
One person I think you can definitely get, because this all takes place during essentially phase 1 of the MCU before the Avengers 1. So it was like if it's around the time of Iron Man 2, you can bring Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 3.
Either way, you can bring in War Machine.
Okay.
Because he's got he is established. He stole a suit, whatever he did, So
right.
War Machine is I think a viable option.
Right.
Other than that, I think it said if you know about T'Challa and Wakanda and you can bring him in, everybody else is kind of, hasn't been established yet.
Right.
Well, but there are people that are still around. I mean, they are in existence. You're just not thinking of, Alex, do you have anybody? Do you have anybody you'd like to add to this list? And before I blow, I guess it's not. It's a brief blow everybody's mind, but any ideas
No, I mean,
who you're picking?
I think War Machine is really the inspired choice because he makes a lot of sense. To come in and be part of that team. It's tough because I got some villains in mind. At this point, Bucky's still a villain. So it would be great to have Bucky be part of this team, but at that time frame, he's just not really going to fit in.
He's War Machine. I mean, he's not War Machine. He's
Winter Soldier.
He's Winter Soldier.
Right. Right. I think at this point too, Vision doesn't really exist, so we can't really pull him in. And the other guy I think about is Zemo, but again, at this point, he's pretty evil too.
Yeah.
So we're probably not going to get him teaming up with anybody. So I think really the easy choice is to pull in Luis from Ant-Man. Because we're going to need that storyteller because the story's going to be shifting so much that if we don't have Luis, we're going to have to go in and start this movie off with breaking Luis out of jail and then having him join the team. And then that's going to get us in the right direction.
Luis opens a lot of doors. Luis he's got the introductions. He can get us to the right place. And all he has to do is just start fast talking and the story's going to move. I like this plan and I'm happy to be a part of it.
I had what I was going to do is at some point in the past, and I was pulling in Daredevil because I'm pulling in the Netflix Marvel series because they're in the MCU. They exist within that same time frame, and they're going on and around. They're just not in use. At the very least, I want Daredevil and Jessica Jones because she's a. But no, I wanted Iron Fist so that he could die early on and be the inspiration that everybody teams up behind. Like so, every like early on, like first scene, like first walk out the door and get shot, and immediately
would they have enough time to form a connection with him?
They just have to show him in a lame super suit. He's not going to fight through any of his scenes anyway, so I mean it's fine.
At all, he's just there to die. He's just there to die. But is there anybody else you mentioned? You mentioned Lady Civ. You don't think there's anybody else is there anybody else that's out of space that you could probably is there anybody else that we're forgetting that before we move along from this? Rashawn, you got anybody else?
I got one.
Well, I did say Nebula. I think I mentioned her because I think the Guardians are still around. And I think that she countered Loki's mind control ability since she is half cyborg. So I thought that would be useful. But yeah, that's pretty much my list.
Yeah.
You bringing up street level heroes reminded me that the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show exists in this reality, and so I want Quake and Robbie Reyes as Ghost Rider and Yo-Yo and whoever else was superpowered on that team. Get me all of them. Bring all the agents on in. Bring Coulson back into the fold. We got to get the team back together. We're gonna avenge some revenge. Right.
That's not a bad pull. Anybody else?
Ghost Rider alone is dope. I want him.
Anybody else you can think of? You want to add to this Avengers team before President Loki takes over the rest of the world?
Well, I mean, we talked about bringing in like T'Challa as Black Panther, but if he's not Black Panther yet, then that means that T'Chaka's still around, his dad. So why not try to bring him in?
That is an option. I was gonna say, has anybody seen the latest episode of What If? Because
no.
All right. Well, then
tomorrow night.
Then I will be quiet then. And sorry. And transition. I was gonna say poorly transition. Hold on a sec. I had a very poor transition that I was gonna go into, which is it's a did you know actually is a transition. Marlon Wayans, since we were talking about superheroes and things that should have worked, Batman Returns is a superhero movie that should have worked, and it made a lot of sense. And Marlon Wayans still receives $100,000 in royalties for a part in that movie that was cut because his character was originally titled The Kid, and he was a mechanic in Penguin's crew with an R in his jumpsuit. Because that was somebody they were going to build out as a character. And so there's a timeline where Tim Burton and Michael Keaton returned for a third Batman with Marlon Wayans as the Boy Wonder. There's a timeline where it doesn't take Lin-Manuel Miranda to get American kids to fall in love with history. And with that, here is the in-person Hamilton review that you didn't ask for nor need. Here's a quick background. I first heard the lyrics of Hamilton with my daughters telling me to put it on iTunes and everything like that. And so I heard them as songs first and foremost, and then didn't see it until it was released into Disney Plus. So that's 2019, and actually saw the actual singers and rappers that did those same songs perform those same songs, performing their lines, but performing the songs. And this past Sunday, I saw the show at the Fox. And
wow.
Long story short review, and I wrote this before, which is the musical. The show is amazing. It's absolutely crazy. It's a wonderful performance, wonderful script, and everything like that. But the rap lyrics themselves aren't that great. They kind of remind me. I wrote a Far Side with one or two decent lyricists with the occasional gem, but generally speaking, mediocre lyrics that you kind of memorize to get to the ones you really like. It's like, like that kind of thing. The question that I posed, and I'll say it, and then ask it to be answered. But so Mark, you get to answer this first. There have been many rappers who have mimicked or repeated other rappers' lyrics. Like whether it's Mos Def doing Children's Story, it's been done, but they put their own twist on it. They changed it somehow. Is there a song where you can think of where a rapper literally just tried to imitate a previous rapper, their lyrics, their beat, their music, and just replicate what was done previously? Completely take what was done previously and do it over again. Is that ever anyone?
Well, I know I have I would consider it a cover song. But and I forget where this came out a while ago, and I forget what album or like where you can find it. But Wu-Tang, or a couple of members, this was when ODB was still alive. A couple of members of the Wu-Tang covered Suckered MCs by Run DMC, and it was like same beat, pretty much the same lyrics, and it's pretty flawless. I think I think I enjoy it very much. That's one song I do also like, and just as an honorable mention, not really copying, but an early Ice Cube song on an EP called, Jackin' for Beats, where he just kind of samples a bunch of other beats that are, of songs. And my favorite part is when he uses the Humpty Dance rhythm and just like, puts a gangster touch on it as he says. So,
but like you just said there, he put a gangster touch on it.
Right.
He put his take on it. So it wasn't necessarily the same thing. Alex, you have any sort of, is there any song or any song you can kind of think of, or an artist or something like that has done that, I guess, which is all just to kind of ask a second question, but anything?
I thought about it, and like Children's Story popped up. But the thing is, the whole culture around hip hop isn't to, it's to quote a line here and there, and doing that as a sign of respect. Like, it was really hard for me to think of places where somebody's actually like recreated something. And the only places that really popped up for me were like recreating the symphony. And, and not just like doing it as a posse cut, but like really like a rebuilding of the song. But honestly, I don't even remember where I heard that. The only place where I can think of, but this is almost more of like a Weird Al thing, is Necro, who was, underground hip hop a while ago, remade LL Cool J's I Need Love as I Need Drugs. And that's the only one that I could think of that was like really like a straight ripoff, but it was flipped. It was a parody.
It was that, and I set this all up because this is my podcast. Therefore, I'm able to set things all this. I saw this because essentially, I view Hamilton turning out as listening to somebody else trying to do somebody else's lyrics, and it just doesn't necessarily work. It's my opinion, and it just becomes, I don't know, you just don't, it's not the same thing as it being a musical, because people, the way people sing a song is they're able to change their voice and everything like that, but raps don't, that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen that way. Rashawn, you know what I'm talking about? Am I explaining this? Am I explaining the reason why I kind of view Hamilton, listening to it a second and third time, and kind of adjusting and kind of going, it's not as great as everybody wants to take it as? Or
No, I understand where you're coming from. I mean, with the delivery in rap is, I might emphasize a different syllable than you do, even though we're saying the same words, and that can change the meaning of everything, right? So, I mean, I'm sure that the cast of Hamilton that you saw, you know, looked at the lyrics, memorized the lyrics, said it on beat and everything, but it's not the same performance. I mean, what goes into, my body language when I say it, when I say a lyric, all that impacts the audience and how they perceive the words that are coming out of my mouth.
so the question then becomes, Anthony, is Hamilton as a rap album, not as a musical album, not anything like that, but as a rap album, is it a good rap album?
It's a great Lin-Manuel Miranda album. I think I think you're right, and it's really interesting. I come at it from a couple of different angles here, as a lifelong fan of hip hop, and then someone who has also been involved in professional theater for most of my life. I was dragged kicking and screaming into Hamilton. I had really no interest in it. I thought it was kind of cringy. I don't like watching white dudes try to force rap. It can just be the worst thing to watch in the whole wide world. And so I heard very similar story. I heard Hamilton for 2 years or so before I ever saw really any of it performed live. And I didn't come away with it in the same, like that same visceral reaction that you had to it, but I totally understand where you're coming from. I think that if you watch somebody else perform somebody else's lyrics, even if I think rap more from MC to microphone to person who's going to hear it, the listener, it's incredibly personal, and whether or not that's and more so than any other type of vocal performance. So I don't know, it's weird to me that like those things, that is a reality, that does sound like somebody's rapping somebody else's lyrics, like almost throughout the entire thing of Hamilton, unless he's rapping himself, and then even then it's still a little bit forced. I'd have a hard time watching anybody else perform that show because I associate it so strongly with his voice and his cadence and his delivery. And every time if I were to perform that show, I'd be mimicking the performer that I heard do it first, and not trying to put my own spin on it.
And I think that's sort of the difference in seeing it live. It's like you're not doing Davy Diggs. You're not doing what I know this is supposed to be, because that's what I've heard it as. That's what not only what I've heard it as, but what I've seen it as the standard. As it's like it's on our platinum digital performance package here that shows you exactly how it's supposed to be done, how it's supposed to sound, and everything like that. And this isn't it. You're trying to do it more, which is weird, because it lessens, the ability. I don't know, or is that maybe it's just a personal thing? I guess is that just a personal thing, Mark? Do you see it the same way? How do you see it when you're hearing Hamilton, you see Hamilton on stage and everything like that?
Well, I never really listened to the album of Hamilton. My first really experience it was probably, I heard about it, what it was, and but when I watched it on Disney Plus, whatever, when it was on it was on Disney Plus for the first time, and and the whole concept, I get, is it's pretty fascinating, it's pretty brilliant of what he came up with, but I don't know if they said not really being really have no really opinion on the album, not really hearing it before. I wouldn't know. I think you said mimicking. If you were going to mimic that performance, I think it would have to be on the main soundtrack. Instead of in trying to. Instead of making it your own. It would be. I don't know. I said I've never I said I not really have. I think not too much knowledge about Hamilton as like an album than to just what I seen on, and it was fine. I didn't. That's probably I need to watch it again.
I guess I should have started by asking Rashawn, have you seen Hamilton? Have you seen Hamilton on TV? Have you seen Hamilton live?
Only on TV.
Only on TV. Alex, how about you? Have you seen it? Have you seen it live? Have you seen it on television, or no, or what?
Neither
Neither at all. So it is completely new to you.
Yes.
But you know of it. You're aware of it.
Oh, sure.
It's in the zeitgeist, man.
Yeah, I was going to thank you. The exact words I was going to say. Like there's no way to be away from Hamilton.
Which is what is absolutely fascinating. This is a Broadway show. It's like Cats when we were growing up. It's like everybody would talk about Cats, but I never actually saw Cats. But it was just a thing that, that's what was on Broadway. And I guess that's Hamilton for this generation, which is strange.
You know what I think is interesting though is because you're really hitting the context. Like you're talking about it as a Broadway show, and I think of it as it's a Broadway show and a musical that's incorporating hip hop.
That's right.
And I think that it's kind of the opposite of what we're used to in hip hop, which obviously the basis is generally people writing their own lyrics, but I'm thinking more about ghostwriting. And what you're talking about in Hamilton is somebody writing lyrics that need to be performed a certain way. Right. Whereas with ghostwriting, and I'm thinking like Dr. Dre 2001, like there was recently a clip of Jay-Z talking about him writing The Watcher and writing the lyrics for Snoop and Dre, and really thinking about that in terms of how does he write in their own voice. And I think that's in contrast because obviously Dre doesn't write a lot of his own lyrics, but there are certainly songs on 2001 that you can very clearly hear Dre rapping Eminem's cadence, because Eminem was just writing rhymes, not writing Dr. Dre. And so it's just interesting because I think that's the way that we generally think about in hip hop, people not writing lyrics for themselves is still they're being tailored, or if they're not tailored, it's very clear that they might be inauthentic. But what we're talking about with Hamilton is something very different, because they aren't lyrics that are being written for an artist. They're really written to be performed by anybody, which is something that we're not used to seeing in hip hop.
And that's, I think that's what it is, because that's exactly what it is. If you're saying it, and I'm realizing that now, it's like, yeah, wait a second, no, everybody is supposed to, but this is supposed to be so everybody can say these lyrics and recite them back, and so therefore, at some point, 20 years from now, somebody's grandchildren are we're holding up some sort of something like this, watching them do that on the stage. Is just going to be crazy. Well,
the exact same thing happened as Superstar, Jesus Christ Superstar. The exact same thing, but with rock and roll.
Okay.
Interesting.
And the smoke from the tire fire is cleared enough for your flights to take off. But before we go, let's close with one numerical trivia question. The passenger with the right answer will win an HD TV from Set It There TVs. Flat screen TVs with no stand and no wall mount get the whole security deposit back with Set It There TVs. The question is this. In 2007, Superbad, starring Michael Cera and Jonah Hill, made $121 million nationwide, making it the highest-grossing high school comedy until this film 5 years later. Mark?
Yeah. I think I've listened to the same podcast as you. It should be 21 Jump Street.
It is 21 Jump Street. That is the correct answer.
Never would have got that. Never in a million years.
Because I wouldn't have thought of it as a high school film, but it's the thing. I don't think of it because I don't think of 21 Jump Street as a high school thing, but it, because I don't know, Johnny Depp and Holly Robinson were like 25-year-olds when they were doing that.
They were old. They were old.
Hey man, Richard Grieco is a dreamboat. I don't want to hear it.
So is Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill.
That's right.
But yeah, so I don't think of that as a high school. I've never seen it though. So that is also the problem. So congratulations, Mark, for getting the answer right. You get on your flight first, which means you get to provide a 30-second holdover to entertain the rest of us while you leave. So you got 30 seconds to entertain us. Please, I'll give you a couple more seconds to try and figure something out, seeing how you might not have known these 30 seconds were coming, but now they're back again, and here you go. 30 seconds. Entertain us.
All right. I'll just bring up something that happened this week, the passing of Norm Macdonald. I'm not sure how much you guys were fans but I don't think there was in recent times, there was more of a influential comedian with other comedians that didn't really do, like, he wasn't in like starring in movies. He wasn't in like a lot of shows, but he made he made other comedians laugh. And if you go into a deep dive on YouTube on this guy, you're going to find a lot of great stuff with late night appearances. And, I don't know what else to say about it, but it's, it was just kind of it was kind of a shock because I think no one knew he was sick. So it's unfortunate, but so just rest in peace, Norm Macdonald.
Well said.
Well said. Thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us here on the Terminal Podcast. Hopefully, we'll see you again next week, and until then, may all your takeoffs land safely. Have a good evening.
Good night, guys.
Thanks, guys.